back again. Okay. Now you can continue talking about Poe and
Alright,
villains and all that.
yeah. The Shen in Kung Fu Panda 2, he was so effective because Tai Lung, we knew he was terrifying because of how he had to be locked up. An entire fucking prison built just for keeping one guy
Mm-hmm.
locked up. And then the motherfucker broke out all because a random feather dropped.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if it was actually the feather or the fact that he overheard them say that a new Dragon Warrior was selected.
Probably a bit of both.
But whatever the case, as soon as he broke free, what did he do? He just casually stretched. And then he just annihilated everything. Even when they decided, alright, we'll just blow up the bridge, he said, alright, go ahead, I'll basically just get across anyway, cause fuck you, I'm Tai Long.
Exactly.
Then we had Shen, who we saw him basically violate the Geneva Convention in that, as far as that world's concerned. He was using cannons, gunpowder, and shit when everyone else was still using wood.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him turn respected masters into cowering, well, cowards.
Yeah.
Who didn't even want to leave the cage and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that though, but we saw how much Poe had grown up just from the first one, in a sense, where everyone was respecting him and where he was competent in everything. It wasn't until while they were taking care of the bandits that were working for him that Poe had a moment where everyone was asking him, what's wrong with you? Like, Shifu trusted him and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and told him he needed to stop Shen because it would be the end of Kung Fu if he didn't. Then, it was so cool when Shifu told him he needed to stop Shen, otherwise it could be the end of Kung Fu and everything. And then when Shifu showed up at the end, that was awesome. Like, he understood what was up, so what did he do? He's like, alright, I gotta help my students. And like you said, the scene with Poe at the end was fucking awesome. Because it was another lesson that Shifu was teaching him at the beginning that he was still trying to learn. And then, just like in the first one, when everyone needed him most, he stepped up again. And then we had the very comedic moment where his hand was still on fire, so he had to put it in his mouth to put it out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, scenes like that, I think, perfectly encapsulate Poe as a character. And then the fact that he kept doing it. Like, Shen was losing his goddamn mind.
Yep.
And also the powerful message that Shen caused his own downfall.
Mm-hmm.
And that even after everything he did to Poe, Poe still was able to come back and was able to choose the peaceful route. Like, in the end, Shen caused his own demise.
Yep.
And even the goat prophet, the old goat prophet lady, warned Shen that his parents loved him, and that he's the one who turned into a monster. It's not that they left him. Obviously, you already acknowledged how good the story was. But my point is this, yeah, one of the reasons it was so good and powerful was because of the fact that with Shin, we didn't have a powerful guy who was angry. We saw a legitimate warlord who had allegedly successfully wiped an entire species, all but one, off the face of the fucking earth. We saw, and he remembered Poe. That's one of the things that made it even more fucked. Like, he legitimately, it's not like Frieza, where when Frieza was on Namek, he kept seeing all the people who he neglected to kill, or tried to kill, that lived.
Mm-hmm.
No, instead, imagine a guy sees you, and he's like, oh, you were that child that I thought I had killed. And then instead of being like, well, you always were insignificant, no, you send the entire fucking might down on the motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
We even had the moment where, because Poe had a hard time explaining everything that had to happen in his traumatic past, which we found out he basically repressed, Tigress of all people had to get him to come back to his senses, saying that she didn't want to see her friend get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That's not me being disrespectful to Tigress, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like, usually she's the, like, logical, let's say, instead of the emotional.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, you would have expected maybe Monkey to try and get Poe to come back to his senses with an emotional response.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the whole thing with the fact that bringing up said memories caused Poe to realize that his father isn't his father, which causes him to not know how to feel, and even his dad. Like, the fact that they were both concerned with possibly losing each other, to the point where where his dad made him a little care package for his trip, and even included, like, a bunch of things from when he was a kid, including his Furious 5 action figures. Which I feel was also a callback to the original movie, where when Poe met them all for the first time, he commented that they're all a lot bigger than their action figures. Except for Mantis, he looks to be about the same size.
Honestly, that's honestly a bit impressive that that to recreate a action figure that's effectively life size.
Yeah, but to be fair, when the life-size person in question is only like 5 inches tall, you know, it's a little less impressive.
When he's only 5 inches tall, you have to
Fair
like
enough.
it might not be as impressive, but it's still saying something.
Uh-huh. Oh, by the way, I need to change what I said. If I was gonna expect any of the Furious 5 to give Poe an affectionate wake-up call, not Monkey, it would have been Snake.
Mm.
He was the most friendly of things. And I remember in the DVD extra thing, where Poe told the backstory of each member of the Furious 5, which kind of was how they obtained their fighting styles and such. We find out that Snake, when she was younger, basically, because she had some kind of, like, deformity or something, it caused her father to be sad. So the little baby Snake girl decided to, like, do some kind of dance or something, which cheered him up, and would later, like, help her for her fighting style. Point is, yeah, she definitely would have been more expected. But back to the matter, the fact that, like, throughout the movie, Poe and his father were concerned with their relationship with each other, and again, not wanting to lose each other.
Mm-hmm.
And for that really heartwarming payoff where when Poe came back, he told his dad he knows who he is and everything. And instead of saying anything further, he just let him know that he is his dad. He is his father. And the two hugged. You know, powerful shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, again, looking at Tai Lung in the first one, he was imposing and intimidating, yes, but the problem was, we knew he was dangerous because of what everyone else said. we only got glimpses of what he was capable of. But again, seeing someone basically burn a continent to the fucking ground in a kid's movie.
Yeah.
Like, that is some late 90s, early 2000s shit that Disney used to do. That is one of the closest instances I can think of to DreamWorks in what is strictly a kid's movie, not a teen movie, let's say. You know, not like an in-between, like Shrek arguably was. That's the closest I think they've ever come to basically saying to Disney, oh yeah, Hellfire, that's a cute little family song. And just for the record, Hellfire beats Be Prepared. Like, I don't think there's any villain song better than Hellfire from a Disney film. Can you think of any?
So you're gonna have a reaction to this.
I'm cracking my knuckles.
I don't know Hellfire.
Fair enough. Actually, I don't have much of a reaction to that one. You see, Hellfire is the villain song of Father Frodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. In a Disney movie, nonetheless, you have what was supposed to be like... I can't remember if in the original story he's a priest or something, but point is, you have a powerful man of the church in a Disney film saying that a woman had corrupted him, and that if he cannot make her his, then he will throw her to the hellfire, basically.
Okay then.
All the while, you have this fire spread around for the imagery, and these people these faceless individuals wearing robes covering their head and such, are just kind of staring at him judgmentally and pointing. And during that part of the song, he says, "It's not my fault. It's the gypsy woman who's corrupted me." And then I don't remember the full song perfectly, but I remember, like, at the end, he says, "This burning desire." He basically says, he legitimately just says that he will have her, no matter what. And then, at the end, you could say this is the comedic moment to after what I still consider the single best Disney villain song ever. That's when someone else walks into the church, and he quickly is stifling out the fire, and makes it, like, with some soot and such, get on his face, and he just says, "Trouble with the fireplace." I should also mention that this is the same film where, at the very beginning, this motherfucker killed a woman and was trying to drown a baby in a well. But because he got caught, not for the murder, but for the attempted murder of the baby by someone who was a higher standing in the church than him, he decided that the deformed baby, who he deemed a monster, he just locked the baby up in the fucking, I think it was the Sistine Chapel.
I think so too.
Point is, the funny thing is, I'm not even a big fan of the movie, but damn, if that wasn't one of their best villains and their single best villain song. So, alright, since you don't know Hellfire, tell me what you consider to be the best Disney villain song. I'm not gonna say I don't know.
Just because it's been so long since I've seen a proper Disney movie that isn't just Marvel.
Maybe they need to get to work on that. I'm not talking about changing the movies, I'm saying they need to insert villain musicals.
Honestly, I would watch that.
There's plenty, they've had plenty of reality bending entities in Marvel where they probably could get away with it at least once. Like, for God's sakes, have it be where the Watcher or Beyonder is just like temporarily looking through the multiverse and come across one instance where a villain is singing like a goddamn song. Oh, how about Black Bolt?
That would be horrifying. That would be actually horrifying.
Oh, and his villain song, instead of being whimsical, needs to be death metal.
You're making it worse.
Worse or better?
Both.
That was an Invader Zim reference. To when he ruined Operation Impending Doom 1. That's what he got banished for. And then when he showed up for Impending Doom 2, they mentioned he caused their entire home world to go up in flames. He says, I put the fires out. They fire back, you made them worse. He, calm as a cucumber, says, worse or better.
Good find.
There have been so many good shows animated and such over the years. It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame that so many of them go unappreciated. But then there are others that live way past their useful years. How the fuck has Johnny Test been around this long? Like, it's technically still ongoing. They had like an entire extra season on Netflix released just like a year or two ago, and reportedly, they're working on a fucking another one.
Jeez.
Johnny Test wasn't even a bad show, at least until a certain point. But like I said, it was basically, you could say, I'm gonna call it the Warner, not just Cartoon Network, because technically it's been on other things as well that Warner owns. It's the Warner equivalent of the fucking Fairly Odd Parents. Seasonal rot is a bitch.
Inquisitor.
I don't even know how we can follow up after those conversations. You know what, let's stay on the topic of villains, because a lot of times they're the most important part in a story. What are some of the villains that come to mind for you? No restrictions. Unless you start to exclusively, I don't know, say like 5 everything's coming from the same source.
Well,
Sure, I want to meet the thing that finds Quillback innards appetizing.
well, I think the first, like, if we're talking about villains,
Yeah?
the first one that comes to mind for me, especially, where did that guy come from? Especially considering I'm playing a BioWare game. The first one that comes to mind for me is Saren from Mass Effect 1.
Oh?
So he wasn't actually... So he was the main person we were following throughout the game, but he wasn't actually the main villain. The main villain was possessing him. Well, like, controlling him Words to that
using
effect.
him.
So, yeah, stuff like that. Like, like, and he was aware of it too. Like, yeah, everyone that the actual main villains of the Mass Effect games controls, like, they recognize that they're not in control, but they can't do anything about it.
Hmm.
Until they get to the point where they're completely in their control. But you can still snap someone out of it too, though. It's not just like once they're in control, you can't do anything.
Fair enough.
Um, but but Saren is especially memorable. Like, you're chasing and fighting them throughout the entire game, and but right at the end. Right at the end, you have the option of right at the end, you have the option, like if you've invested it highly enough in if you've invested highly enough in the good tree, or I think it's either tree, but specifically the good tree, I think. If you've invested enough in it, you can actually convince Saren that to recognize that everything he's been doing is wrong. Like, this isn't the way. Like, hey, this is making things worse.
Hmm.
And if you're successful, he will actually shoot himself.
Damn.
Like, it's one of the few times I can think of where, like, this is legitimately, like, the big bad. As far, like, yes, he's not in control, but he's still the big bad.
Mm-hmm.
Where they'll actually recognize this, that they are in the wrong, that this needs to stop. And he will actually, like, you still have a boss fight after that because it's a two stage, but it instantly puts you in stage 2. Where he is no longer in control. You are literally just fighting a possessed skeleton.
I'm glad you made it, Inquisitor. I fear they've already started the ritual. It has to be blood magic. I hope we can stop them before more people get hurt. You take point. I'll guard your backs.
What about you? What other big good villains can you think of? Or just villains you can think of?
Alright, so one good villain I can think of is the Major from Hellsing.
Wait! No.
What makes him an intimidating and terrifying villain is there have been plenty of villains where everything is just a game, right? Like, where they treat, like, the conflict and pain they're doing. It's one thing when they do it like that, it's another thing when their entire purpose for keeping themselves alive is solely because they love war so fucking much. Like, this dude who was a Nazi became a cyborg for the sole purpose of starting another fucking war, just for causing millions of deaths. He saw everyone, including himself, as just a plaything for war. Like, everything he fucking did, like, including knowing that someone will disobey an order, and instead of, like, thinking, alright, I need to condition this, instead just thinking, oh, it'll be fun watching her die when she decides to inevitably go off on her own. Or even just send someone to die on the grounds of, like, making them think that their job was one thing when really it was just to send a message. Like, for God's sakes, when it came to... I think her name was Rip Van Winkle. She was the chick with the sniper. When it came to her dying, which, just a reminder, was Alucard stabbing the fucking gun, which I don't think even had a bayonet on it, through her and pinning her to a goddamn wall. While she was dying out, bleeding, in pain and desperation, he just casually he enthusiastically saluted along with all of his men as they were watching her literally get pinned to a boat with a fucking gun. Like, all the shit he did, he didn't have some ulterior motive. It wasn't him trying to reclaim Germany's honor, or I should say not the Nazis' honor, because Germany, no way in hell they would go with that shit. My point is, like, all the evil he did, and there was no point to it. The point was literally just for war itself. It's not to start a war and win. It's not to start a war and then pick off the winner. It's nothing. He literally just wanted to start a war. He didn't care how long it went on. He didn't care about any of that other shit. And all the things he did to get it, that's what really makes me just think, holy fuck. Like, even when he was dying, he was just happy.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that makes him a villain that stands out.
Mm-hmm.
We're playing this by passing the metaphorical ball back and forth, so it is now your turn. Again.
So this isn't a good villain, but this is a villain that had the potential to be a very good villain.
I'm intrigued.
Voldemort.
You will have to elaborate for me. Because, I've seen a few of the movies, but I don't really know what's special about him. So go on.
So, he was born in the, 1950s during World War II. He was in an orphanage when they were bombing London. And, like, he had, like, he met Albus Dumbledore, and the first thing Dumbledore did was admonish him for being a kleptomaniac and then uh, uh, showing the young Voldemort that magic existed by setting his cupboard on fire.
Huh.
Then in school he was like, then in the school he was just like, he was just kind of antagonistic toward the young Voldemort.
Why would the wardens try to kill the old gods?
And it's and that and then and then he eventually left when he eventually graduated from Hogwarts. He left for a while, came back, and applied to teach Defense Against the Dark Arts uh, at Hogwarts, and it's just like, okay, he was just trying to teach Defense Against the Dark Arts. That's it. And when Dumbledore said no, it's a common belief that that is what started the curse on the Defense Against the Dark Arts position, so that no one can, so that any teacher there can only survive 1 year teaching.
Why would Clarel risk using demons?
So then we don't know much about what happens next, except that Voldemort is now uh, that he is now Voldemort, that he is now leading had the Knights of Walpurgis, the Death Eaters, and it's just they're just at this point they're trying like in the beginning, before he went completely insane, he
Yeah.
he had good reasoning for he had decent reason for doing what he's doing. It could partially be because he wanted to rule, but it could equally be that with Dumbledore leading the Ministry of Magic, or like, yes, he might not be the minister, but he was the judge, the teacher, the leader of the Magical United Nations. Those are three very big positions, and anyone's like, oh yeah, it's Dumbledore. He's the leader of all of this stuff. He has to know what he's doing. And like,
Mm.
taking out, like, supposedly Hogwarts is like the best magic school ever, but they have they have like 7 classes, maybe like 7 or 8 classes. Uh, they like, it doesn't make a lot of sense that if they're so good, why does it seem that their schooling isn't that great? And in the so and like they're taking on Muggle traditions, normal people traditions. Like, instead of magical holidays, they have Halloween and Christmas instead of Samhain and Yule.
Mm.
Like, it's and like, just because there's dark, like, and equally, just like, oh, all of this stuff is dark. But even in the Harry Potter books, it was just like, just because has it might not all be the nicest things ever, doesn't mean it's evil. Which, so
Mm.
there's a lot of logic that can be said that what their what Voldemort started as was leading towards a good cause, but he did kind of go completely bonkers towards the end of his first war.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then the next part of it is that the is that okay, he heard a prophecy, and because he was already insane because he had split his soul 6 times up to this point, like
Yeah.
that like splitting your soul has to affect you majorly. Like, he's insane and paranoid and all that other stuff, because it has to have a severe effect. The it's logical that it is logical that because of how paranoid he's gotten,
Release the wardens from the
he
binding and surrender. I won't ask twice.
he
No, you won't.
uh, because of the because of that, it makes
The
sense that he would
L1
go out
Tree
and
are
try and
doomed.
kill
For
whoever.
men foolish enough to rebel.
That that was the cause of it.
That mark you bear, the anchor that lets you pass safely
All
through the
right.
gale.
I've
Uh,
I
got.
stole that from my
Go on.
master.
I
Sorry,
thought
there
that
was
was the
still
end.
more.
Chose to seek other ways to
Go ahead.
access
I
the
won't
faith.
forget.
So,
When I bring him your head, his grave will be...
sorry, my character just blew a guy up. Um,
Kill them!
so it makes sense, but like, uh, I can't see it. It doesn't make sense to me that uh, like, all of the old blood houses in Harry Potter, they all
They refuse to listen to reason.
they all have like these
Correct.
ancient family
In their
manners.
ritual, the mages are
Yeah.
slaves to
So,
Gravius. And
how
the
much
Warden
sense
warriors?
does it make?
Of course. Sacrifice to the
How much
Witcher.
sense does it make
What a
that
waste.
the he, that they decided to hide in a small little house in the village that Dumbledore lived in as a child, under a single spell that no one's heard of.
Airmen lied to the wardens. They were trying to prevent future blights.
It doesn't, like, so there's a lot of belief that there's a lot of belief in the community that Dumbledore
They had their reasons.
believed
All blood
that
mages do.
Ted Dumbledore is the
Everyone has a
cause of
story
why
to
they
tell
were there,
themselves to justify bad
and
decisions.
and he's
Never
the
matters.
and like
In
he
the
was
end, you are always alone with your actions.
he didn't think that they
I
would
believe I know where the
die,
blights are.
but if
Airmen fled
if
in
they
that
did, it wouldn't have. He didn't
There's
think it
an
was a
abandoned
great loss
golden
because
fortress nearby. Have a
it's a guaranteed prophecy.
Good thinking.
But
The warden and I
now
will
fast
scout
forward a
that
bit.
outlet and confirm
It's
that the other
been
wardens are there.
10
We'll meet you
years.
back at Skyhold.
Voldemort has just enough power to possess a teacher at Hogwarts, and and while there, he decides to uh, among all the stuff he does, he drinks the blood of unicorns. He drinks the blood of unicorns. He has
Oh, real quick. Something funny I want to mention. In that old game Shrek Super Slam, there was a unicorn in it, and it was literally named Anthrax.
Wow. So he did all this stuff and like subtly sabotaging Harry and all this. And and Dumbledore decides to hide a legendary artifact that can turn any metal into gold, and give anyone can give anyone with sufficient knowledge the ability to live forever. He hides this behind 6 or 7 puzzles that literally that 6 or 7 puzzles, and three students who were basically just introduced to magic completed it by themselves without assistance.
While also doing it in secrecy.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing if they did it without help. It's another thing when they were also trying to not get caught.
Yeah, like...
You get into that funny moment that appears in a trailer for one of those movies where it's like, why is it whenever anything happens, you three seem to be involved?
I mean...
Continue.
Yeah, like... So all of this is happening. And then when we... And... So... Good old Voldy is not... Can't get it because... To get it, you have to get it, you have to, to actually receive the item, you have to basically, you basically just have to want it, but not, but you have to have no desire to use it, basically. Which is interesting, like, why would you be here looking at this if you didn't want to use it, basically?
Nonsensical.
Yeah.
And not incoherent, but counterintuitive.
Like, at that point, why, if the kids never got there, then Voldemort would have just been, would have probably just ended up, like, destroying the mirror, possibly losing the stone for all of eternity, and the world would be a better place, because now he's, like, he would have had no way to, he would have had no way to get it, so...
Wasn't one of the forms of immortality he had also something really stupid, like anyone could have just like picked something up.
Uh, uh, in actuality, all of his treasures, he hid them all, but he also made them so that if someone did find them, they would be tempted to use it, so that they would because if someone used it, A, it would make it so they couldn't destroy it, and B, it would make them that it would possess them and take control over them, so that there would be, so that just in case he did perish, someone would take his mission. So, it, that, so to an extent it was intentional, but again, they're pieces of his goddamn soul. But so uh, so again, hiding something in there. Then in second tier, we're having this big standoff thing where it's just like, oh no, someone's opening the Chamber of Secrets. But like, yeah, Voldy doesn't really have a big place in this one because he did entrust this diary to a loyal follower with the specific instruction of keep it safe, keep it hidden, don't let anyone find it. So like, logically, he didn't want anything to happen to it. Which is understandable, considering piece of his soul. So... and finally from there, that they have the from there the next step of it is that he like if like again and again this another part of this whole thing is that Dumbledore was there when Dumbledore was there when the Chamber of Secrets was first opened. And somehow, some way, he just kind of said, "Okay, I know that Hagrid couldn't possibly have done it because his secret pet project thing was actually just a giant spider. But I've had 50 years to work on it. I'm sure it's fine. I don't really need to do anything here." Like like Hermione, a girl who's known about magic for 2 years, not really even that long, managed to figure out that it's a giant snake in the girls' bathroom on the second floor. Like, it's Dumbledore, and he's had literal years to figure this information out. And he couldn't. Or chose not to. But, so I'm going to accelerate a little bit so that we actually get to the point. So, accelerating, good old Voldemort comes back in fourth year, and the whole media is just like, like, oh no, he can't be back. Harry Potter must be lying about it. And throughout it all, it's basically just, and throughout it, it's just like, oh, Harry Potter must be lying, and all, and everything's wrong, and Harry's being just a little bit possessed and all this. But yes, Harry Potter must be lying, and and everyone fully believed that he must be lying, right up until A, he broke his followers out of Azkaban in a super public manner, and B, everyone saw him in the middle of the Ministry. So, no matter what, no matter what, it's already like, okay, yeah, we can see you, but
No matter what, like, he showed himself, like, every single time. And his plan could have been thwarted by so many people.
yeah, like, if, like, the only reason that they didn't,
You waiting for it to say your name?
like, the only reason that it didn't, end horribly for them, for him, is because the people of Britain are all like, oh yeah, we have to be saved by specifically Harry Potter. If we're not saved by Harry Potter, it doesn't matter.
In other words, this is one instance where the story for the hero's and villain was built upon plot convenience.
Yeah. And like even then, like even after all of this stuff is happening, we even after everything that happened, like Voldemort legitimately had access to the knowledge to break his followers out of Azkaban without anyone ever finding out.
And did it in the second most public way possible.
What?
And decide to do it in the second most public way possible.
Yes, like the guy that basically let him be revived, who was then killed because the Ministry is all stupid as hell, but the person who let him be revived.
Was that the guy who, like, cut him out of his body like he was a weird baby?
Possibly, I don't.
Mechanical eye?
Yeah. So the person you saw is Alistair Moody, but the actual person was Barty Crouch Jr., who everyone believed died in Azkaban 10 years ago.
Was that the guy who was known as the Prisoner?
No, that's...
Oh wait, no.
So at this point, it's just like... At this point, it's like super public knowledge that the... well, it's not public knowledge, but... Like, Voldemort knew that Barty Crouch Jr. broke out of Azkaban, or was broken out of Azkaban, by his father. And the only reason he and like his mother, it was just his mother, or his mother convinced his father to use a potion to turn her into him.
Mm-hmm.
And like that is such a simple thing to do that Voldemort could have legitimately just said, have his master potion brewer say, make up a bunch of Polyjuice potions, go kidnap some muggles, normal people, and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your auntie, break your followers out of prison, and everyone's just assumed, oh, there's an outbreak of the flu in prison, they're all dead.
What was that? Oh, my failure. What can I do?
Like, like,
Back
wouldn't
of intestines.
wouldn't that make so much more sense?
Friend, you are
It
in.
would.
I
And
will
like,
certainly note your
like
existence
he was
in the
breaking
Holocaust
into
file.
the,
I will attempt to lure her out as soon as my background research is complete.
like, he could have
Mistakes are
legitimately,
made.
fought,
The ancient
or like,
defenders
and then with the
far away
prophecy,
from the study of
he
dragons.
could
Mm-hmm.
have
I believe they
easily,
had a laboratory in
just
this
as easily,
building.
like, oh,
Now,
Lucius Malfoy is like
there
super,
are
like this,
some
everyone knows him.
lights set the way of the volcanology
He's everyone.
backstage.
A lot of the
Have you
people on the side of good think he's an evil son of a bitch, but he is a,
Spotted several dragon signs around the area.
but he is a,
excellent, my friend?
but in the ministry,
I
he is
don't
like
suppose you
everyone
noticed.
just bows to his whims.
No matter, I'll look into that later. On
Mm-hmm.
So
this
he could
display,
he could
from what I
very
can tell,
easily
the dragon has been used
use the
as
transformation
cargo
potion to
for
turn into Lucius Malfoy,
Naturally,
walk in,
dragons
pick
have
up the
been
prophecy,
branded
and go.
as threats. White Claw raiders. They've covered the area in
Hmm.
traps for Maker only knows reasons.
So
Quite a mess.
I found
and
this
and
manuscript on dragons in an ancient
and then
Imperial
like,
laboratory.
okay, so
Will it help you?
they're hunting the Horcruxes.
Remarkable diagrams.
That's
Yeah.
what
These
the soul traps are
chambers of the
called.
draconic heart. Oh, if only I could read the script. Do you perhaps
Um,
know a linguist? Or a Tevinter historian?
Go on.
Don't look at me. Nobody's spoken that form of Fiend in 700
so
years.
I don't,
and then
Yeah.
with
but the
his
Inquisition
soul,
might.
his
I'll speak to
phylacteries
our specialist.
is just uh, they could have easily
We'll have to speak
Voldemort
some other
could have
time.
very easily like thought, okay, they should all be safe, but I I've been trapped for like I haven't been able to check on them for 10, 12 years or some shit. Maybe I should double check to make sure that they're all safe and sound. And like, okay, the easiest one, the one in his uh in his family's house that was like one in his family's house. Okay, that's safe. Check the next easiest one to get to. Oh no, it's been replaced by a fake. And that would probably clue him in. Let me go get all of the others because this is dangerous and someone knows about my soul traps. It knows about the things that is keeping me alive. And hell, uh, like, wouldn't it make sense for Voldemort to be to have seen have noticed the fact that that like the whole plot at the end of the whole plot for the end of the whole plot for the end of the fifth book is Voldemort sent him in the imagery of his godfather being trapped. It is in the trap, and Harry or well, Voldemort, with that knowledge, could have just as easily said, "Okay, I have a connection to my arch enemy's mind. Maybe there's a reason for that." And I'm sure there's a way he could have figured out, oh no, I have uh, my arch enemy uh, is is actually also my soul phylactery. Like, that is a legitimate jump that you could make. And just the fact that he never did is a little alarming. Like, there's so many things there that he could have been oh, oh no, oh no, it's, let me, every, he wasn't sane, but everything did could have been done better ways that would make a
Hmm.
ton more sense in the story. So he could have been a great villain. And and like honestly, at the end of in the sixth book, the whole thing there was that he gave Draco Malfoy the task of either you either your family dies or you can either your family either we kill the or either I kill your family or that you can figure out a way to get me and the rest of the Death Eaters into the school. And like, and Draco Malfoy legitimately came up with, here's some vanishing cabinets, break into the school, easy as pie.
Back to Adamant Fortress. They're looking at assault options now in the war room. Thanks for coming. You did well. The Inquisitor.
It's like,
Why exactly? Couldn't they have gotten literally anyone else to help with that? That seems so fucking easy.
it had, it, part of it was that he wanted to test Draco Malfoy to make sure that he could be useful.
I hear you, but I'm just saying, like, based off what you've given me, it kind of sounds like the plan was either Malfoy will figure out a way to do it, or they'll figure out a way. Like, it doesn't sound like he actually had a way.
Or, well, I think the Dark Lord basically told him, here are your options. You can either do this,
Okay,
or
that makes a lot more sense.
either do this and succeed, or we are going to have issues.
Okay. Well, now I have a villain.
Mm-hmm.
One that I guess you could say is more obscure.
Mm-hmm.
It's from a game I never played, but I was made aware of from a video from a YouTuber I watched like 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't rewatch the video, but I did go back to find it. It's called Rule of Rose. Now, you're familiar, I'm not saying you've played, but are you familiar with the American McGee's Alice?
What?
Alright, so it's like this. In this game, you're gonna play as this girl staying at an orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
It's in like the 1930s. So, first off, the orphanage is basically a prison. Second, it's like an all-girls orphanage. And everyone just treats this girl like shit, right? Throughout it, you find out she's also like having some amnesia type of deals, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the story progresses, it's found out that the main antagonist is this little girl who used to be your best friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, though. It's not just that she used to be your best friend. You two were more than friends, if you get my drift.
Well, chico, well, yeah.
Remember, these are little girls at an orphanage.
Oh.
So, it's like this, though. It's a shitty, miserable place and everything, right? So the two were each other's like entire like support and everything. Well, things changed one day
When the Fire Nation attacked?
You have no idea just how fucked up that is gonna be as the story goes on.
I'm sure.
So basically, it was pretty shitty, but but because the two had each other, life wasn't too bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything changed when the main girl found a lost puppy. The puppy gave her some genuine happiness and joy and such.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem. It made our villain get jealous. which caused her to start this club. I can't remember all the details, but for the sake of it, I'll just call it the Roses Club.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this club was basically just a bunch of the orphans ganging up and bullying and cruelly treating anyone who's not in it. Right? And forcing them to do whatever they say.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, as time goes on, you find out that and you regain, and the girl regains some memories. She finds all this shit out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, another thing that's found out is she fucking because she was so jealous of the dog, not only did she kill it, but she went the whole JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1 with it. Putting the puppy in a fucking, like, a cast iron stove, basically.
Jesus.
The mayor has anything to
Yeah.
say in his defense, let him speak.
There's no
All
cure for the
because
blasting.
the puppy took the other girl, the main girl's love away from her. But that wasn't enough either, no. She basically made her life a living hell in any way she could. Including stealing, like, I think it was a pendant, which was, like, the only thing she had left from her family, who she had lost due to a tragic event. I think it was, like, a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as time... Oh, there was also this guy who went insane.
You committed
He
murder
was
on
just...
Ferelden's
who
soil.
went insane
Let
because
them
he
deal
had
with
lost
it.
his wife
Send him to
and
General.
little girl.
He can live the rest of his life behind
He
the
was...
bars.
You know how there's, in a lot of, like, childhood stories, people talk about how there's a creepy old man or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what this guy was. However, he was actually like a mental patient in the making. Remember, this is like 1930s. Well, here's what happens. Here's what you get in the in the final ending of the game. Eventually, you overthrow the mean bitch, and you become the player character becomes the new president of the club, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it seems like maybe she's gonna either put an end to the club entirely or change it so that way it's no longer gonna torment and torture everyone.
I feel it's not gonna end this way. Continue.
Well, you see, the jealous chick, she kind of went and got the psychopath who, for the boss battle, I think in, like, his health bar, when it said his name, it literally called him, like, Mad Dog. Like, he was on a fucking, going on all fours like he was a primal beast. He had a chain around his neck and shit. Basically, it seemed that the mean girl was trying to scare, / just, like, bully you again. But instead, things took a drastic turn.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, here's what happened. Because the guy is so fucked up in the head, when he sees everyone, he just starts attacking. Like, he
geez.
legit is slaughtering these orphans again and again, and for, like, this final segment, in this game, you basically have to stealth around while he's looking for you, while you occasionally hit him when you can, until his health gets to a certain point. Then you're supposed to pick up a gun, and you have two options, two endings. A bad ending where you shoot the guy, in the air quote good ending, he, in a moment of sanity, begs you to give him the gun, and when you do so, he shoots himself.
Damn.
Yeah. I'm not doing a very good job explaining it, but again, this is something I encountered not through first-hand, but second-hand experience. So this is all memory from some But yeah, it's like a really dark, and narratively, it's really interesting because, again, remember, this was a girl who loved the other girl romantically, but all it took was something, but because of how screwed up their situation was, oh, I should also mention, the guy who's running that orphanage, it's heavily implied he molests the girls.
Jesus.
Yeah. My main focus, though, like I said, is on the little girl who was torturing you the entire time. All this happened just because she felt like a puppy was taking attention away from her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like someone took Angelica Pickles and decided, I could make her worse.
Yep, that sounds very accurate, yeah.
And the fact that in the end, she was so desperate to try and regain control that she got a literal mental patient who just hadn't been acquitted to a house to attack the orphanage and such.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, this is 19 fucking 30s. Like, it's not, phones and all that shit weren't exactly super common. Or, you know, it wasn't where everything was just like a 2-minute drive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna send you the link so that way you can watch the video on it, because narratively this is a very interesting game. Though, again, it's pretty sad. Oh, and to top things off, the main girl who makes it out of this tragedy alive, meaning she survived 2 tragedies. Just a reminder, she's in London, and she's, in case I didn't say that, shit. She's in London and decides she wants to live her life now. Finally start living her life. The game ends not on a cliffhanger, but when she says that it's 1940s in London.
Oh dear.
Yeah, you see, this is after 2 traumatic experiences where she lost her family and then her friends. And now she's saying that she wants to live her life right before the Germans are gonna start fucking bombing.
Well then.
Yeah. Like I said, the story is actually really gripping and such.
Mm-hmm.
However, unfortunately, 2 things. One, the gameplay suffers horrendously. According to the devs themselves, they were very much time crunched. And the other unfortunate thing is, this game happens to be very fucking rare. I'm not even kidding. I think just like a copy in the case, like the disc in the case, because of how limited of a release it is. I'm not kidding. I think that shit goes for like $900.
Jesus.
I don't think that manual or disc condition is that relevant. So, even though I would recommend just like watching videos on the story, because I don't think it's worth the money as far as playing it. If you're just gonna play it maybe once or twice, and it sure as shit isn't. And even if you emulate it, it sure as shit that's not gonna help with how garbage the controls are. Or not just the controls, but how badly it like plays and such.
Yeah. So while we're talking about all this, that just reminded me of something I was meaning to bring up.
Go on.
So I was messaging Chad earlier about Fate Grand Order.
Uh-huh.
That second boss fight, by all rights, the second boss fight is harder than the first one. She has something like 100,000 more health. She's stronger. She has more resistances. By all rights, by all rights, it should be harder for me to. It should be harder. Except somehow, the first one, as I said, She killed my entire party, and I had to use a revive item. And then I defeated her. Second fight. 4 turns in. And I killed her. And she has almost 700,000 health. And I killed her in 4 turns. That just doesn't seem logical to me. At all. Like, you understand why I'm harping on this, right?
Kinda. I feel like it's one of those things where I'd understand it more if I actually played the game. Like, to a degree I get it, but at the same time, I keep just thinking, well, it is the second boss, so it should be harder than the first. If you know what I mean?
Yes, but what I'm saying is the second boss fight was easier than the first.
Oh. I thought you said the opposite. That's my bad.
Here's how my brain is telling me to phrase this. I'm using Dark Souls 3 as an analogy.
Okay.
I defeated the Storm Ruler. I had to use... I defeated Storm Ruler. King of the Storms. I defeated King of the Storms. My love tap that broke and I barely survived. I'm healed back to full. I'm going at it. I kill Nameless King in like 2 hits. Like phase 1, phase 2. Like
okay, now I get it.
It's unreasonable that I shouldn't have killed him. That I shouldn't have killed the boss that quickly. I don't know how I killed the boss that quickly, but somehow I managed to it's like it would be like it's very much like okay, I'm going at this. Apparently, I'm using the Dragon Slayer Great Axe from the Dragon Slayer armor boss soul. I'm using that. Uh, but I'm not. I didn't know I'm using that, and that's a really awesome weapon when I 2-shot the boss. Or well, like I press R1 a few times, and then I use the weapon. And I think, oh yeah, this. I think he's about to kill me, but I want to try this just to be. I want to try and hit this, and then he just dies. Like by all rights, I shouldn't have won. I shouldn't have been able to survive doing that. But I did survive.
You put it in a better way for me to understand that instance. Excuse me. That was a lengthy yawn.
Yeah, just... I'm not sure how I survived. I did survive, but I'm not sure how. I'm happy I did. It's cool. But I was really hyped up for a bigger fight. Don't worry, non-caffeinated.
I wasn't.
I was doing that more for stream's sake than,
Fair enough. Excuse me.
Yeah, I was... I'm happy I did it, but I am still a little peeved that I went to. I was like really hyped for it. Figured this was gonna take me the rest of the night. But like, here's another reference for you, Matt. Like,
oh boy.
Uh, my reference here is there are 3 final bosses left in this arc of the game for me. She was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I expected her to be like I I expected her to be like uh I'm going to use Elden Ring for this comparison. I expected her to be like Fire Giant levels hard, where it's a hard fight if you know, but if you know what you're doing, if you've done it enough, it should be easy. But it is going to be a difficult fight. Fire Giant without a horse. Um, then the then the other part of it
Uh-huh.
is that then the next 2 bosses for me are basically one is like I think it feels like the next 2 bosses are one's going to be Melania and the other is going to be Elden Beast. Like I've looked them up and that's basically the comparison there. Like my next 2 boss fights are effectively Melania and Elden Beast, and I was expecting this one to be just as difficult.
Inquisitor.
You know who was another really good villain?
Hmm.
I'm gonna name a few, all from Avatar.
Avatar did have good villains.
Yep. First off, when he was one, Zuko was a good villain.
Yeah.
Like, even before his redemption and everything, like, we understood that he was our enemy and everything, but we also understood he wasn't heartless.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made him compelling and made his eventual redemption, when we started seeing signs of it, all the more impactful and such.
Mm-hmm.
Next, there's Admiral Zhao. He was also a pretty good villain. He was like an antithesis to Zuko.
Yeah.
Like, he got promoted so many times. I think I remember that when he got his final promotion, I think I remember Iroh himself even saying something like, Zhao's been promoted again? And think of it, when he fought Zuko and Agni Kai and lost,
Mm-hmm.
instead of instead of accepting the loss and trying to, learn from it or anything, he instead went and tried to attack Zuko when his back was turned after the duel. If Iroh wasn't there to not only stop him, but also criticize him and call him out for how he acts,
Mm-hmm.
then he probably would have kept quiet about everything.
Gotten away with it too, yeah.
Yep. And it's the fact that he would go through any lengths to achieve his goal, even when it went beyond what was necessary. Like, for God's sakes, he killed / wounded
The moon.
the moonfish, and Iroh warned him. He told him that isn't just gonna fuck up the Water Nation, that will actually fuck the entire world. He told him whatever he did to that fish, he would do to Zhao 1,000-fold or whatever. Zhao, being the petty motherfucker he was, still went through with it.
Yep.
And that's after he attempted to blow Zuko up to get Iroh to join him.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, when Zuko was trying to get... Even then, Zuko tried to save his life. Zhao decided he would rather fucking die. Like, he was villainous, egotistical, narcissistic, and fucking prideful.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Azula, the single best villain in Avatar history, or at least during Last Airbender. I have not watched Korra, I did not care for Korra, but I would be lying if I said that... Fuck, what was his name? The first antagonist? The one who created the Equalizers?
I don't remember, but mask guy.
Yeah. He was a decent villain. Honestly, the worst part about Korra was just Korra.
Yeah, from what I've heard, she does get better towards the end, but I'm not sure I believe it.
I'm willing to believe it, but at the same time, I feel like it's a lie. Like, I'm willing to believe that she might improve. Like, if she stayed the same, or if she was already, quote-unquote, a good character and then didn't change, that would be debatably worse.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more like, I know that towards the end of the series, I feel like they might say some shit about her improving, just because by the end of the series, she goes full lesbian. I don't even mean that in a hateful way, but like when that season came out, that was also when the Bumblebee shippers in Ruby were at their most annoying. So it kind of feels like it could have been a case of people saying that she got better just because she ended up with the girl. But back to the matter at hand, I can still acknowledge when they had some good villains. Such as the mask guy, and there's this dude, I think he could best be described as Evil Aang. This dude who wasn't a bender initially, he like read and studied all the things about the Air Nation. Right? Like, he was passionate about, like, freedom and such. Can you guess what he did when he acquired Air? First off, he wore an outfit similar to Aang's, except in, like, all black. Or dark colors. Second, the Earth Kingdom's queen was a bit of a tyrant, right? Can you... Including, like, when people, like, speak out against her, she would basically crush them. Like, that kind of tyrant. Not even the subtle kind. The, I am above you all, you are peons kind of deal. Can you guess what he did?
I'm going to guess he killed her and, like, did a, like, killed her, like, assassination style, like, did so that she choked to death or some shit.
You're close in that regard. Here's what he did. After she says her shit, he calmly... I'm gonna say flies, but really it's more like he just hopped and used the air to make it a Hulk jump. He hopped onto a pillar right by her, starts doing some hand gestures, as if... Think of it kind of like when Aang was trying to learn how to waterbend. And he's airbending the air out of her lungs.
That's what I was meaning, something like that.
And he didn't do this subtle, though. Like, he did it in broad fucking daylight. He did it, he spun it, he continued to spin it around her so she could see the very last breath she'll take before she dies, and as she suffocates. All the while, he calmly and coldly says, freedom is is important. For some people, it's as vital as air. Boom. Body hits the ground. She's no longer fucking alive. Like, he did that shit in broad fucking daylight. Like, it wasn't like he was hidden or anything. He just straight up showed up, walked into her palace, basically said, "You are a tyrant and you must be stopped." The reason I said he's kind of like an evil Aang is he was doing what he thought was right for freedom.
Mm-hmm.
He basically did what all the other avatars told him he should have done to Ozai.
Yeah. I have at least one question.
Yes.
Did he shave his head too?
Yes.
Okay.
He either shaved his head or his head was just already bald. I don't know the details.
Secondary question. In book 3 of The Last Airbender, in book 3, we see that after the whole attack on the Fire Nation thing, we see that,
Earth Kingdom?
Yeah, after Earth Kingdom, we see that Aang grew a full head of hair.
Yep.
Does that imply that had been shaving his head?
Yes.
That's
how the Earth Nomads did things. Remember...
Air Nomads. But yes.
Air Nomads, yeah. Remember, they were literally like monks.
Yeah,
like they're supposed to be free of earthly desires and such.
It just amuses me the fact that he effectively shaved his head every day. Like, basically before every episode started, basically he had just shaves his head. Like, whenever it cuts away and we can't see what he's doing, he's shaving his head. Do you reckon he used that's like that's like a sign of your mastery of your airbending? Like you learn how to airbend your hair away?
Honestly, I don't know. Could be. Like, we know that if he wanted to, he could be using air in very sharp ways.
Uh-huh.
I mean, hell, when they were... I think it was in book 2, there was even the moment where Aang where Aang was wearing this really heavy, big-ass, cool, but probably impractical, like, armor.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentioned to Katara all he needed was an air sword, and he explained that apparently something he could do is just create a blade made out of strong pressurized air that could cut things.
Terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Aang gets into enough trouble with blunt weaponry. He does not need to be able to cut people to... okay... that just makes me kind of curious of like who would benefit more from the other's training? Naruto getting Aang's bending training, or Aang getting Naruto's wind training? Like
Naruto would get more benefit.
I get that, but also like Aang would end up with Aang if they got the same amount of return from it. Aang would get the ability to shred people on the molecular level.
I hear you, but I'm inclined to believe he already can do that and just chooses not to.
That is a terrifying thought. That Aang has so much control of his air that if he wasn't a pacifist, he could just turn. Oh god, Okay, here's a terrifying thought.
Just a reminder, Charles.
Uh-huh.
He was able to fake earthbending because of how powerful and consistent he was able to keep the air and wind he creates.
Okay, fair.
He could fly up to a fucking cloud and waterbend the water mid-flight.
Okay, you are making fair points, but just because...
When he got
anyway.
pissy, he accidentally created a desert storm.
True.
He could deadass create national disasters if he wanted to.
I hear you, but my one point is my one point is just because he has that amount of power and control doesn't mean he has as much control as over wind as Naruto does. Like yes, he has a lot of power control, and so does Naruto. But I'm not sure that Aang's is up to the point where he can make all of his winds shred at that level. Because I feel like if we, well,
Hey, Charles.
yes,
Remember how Aang created what he calls the air cycle?
vaguely.
He literally creates a Rasengan to ride like a unicycle.
Okay, fair enough.
And he can fly on that bitch like a Nimbus cloud. From Dragon Ball.
My one point is that
I'm not done.
let me put my one point in, then you can continue.
Okay.
My one point is if Aang could legitimately shred at a molecular level, I feel like it would have happened at least once, one of the times he went Avatar State.
I hear you, but I do still have a counterpoint.
Okay, speak your counterpoints. I need to go pee.
Whenever he went into Avatar State, with one exception, he never fully lost control. It was more like it was the quiet rage that he has, kind of partially breaking through. Like, and to top things off, before he mastered the Avatar State, it was always a high-stress situation that caused it. Hell, the first instance where someone actually told him about it and everything, he wasn't sure, and then they went and talked to, I don't even know who the Earthbender was, I know it's someone who wanted to use the Avatar State to fight the Fire Nation. You know, the guy who decided
General so-and-so, yes.
Yeah. Point is, like, we saw him raging then, and everything. Until he reached a certain point, the Avatar State was always just a high-stress situation thing. Hell, we didn't even get to see him master it. Like, we always saw... The closest we saw to him mastering it was while he was in the middle of the transformation, Azula shot him in the goddamn back with lightning. And then he was fighting Ozai at pretty well without it, but the moment he got hit, he took that blow, which somehow reconnected his chakras.
Yeah,
boom, you saw what happened.
Uh-huh.
And even then, I'd argue that the reason that he didn't get killed wasn't because Aang was still in control, but more like because thanks to Sozin's comet, I think Ozai was just a little too powerful for them to do it. And then when they finally had the chance, well, you know, that's when Aang broke in. And finally, the other reason why I say that Aang would get... Why I say that, like, between the two, Aang would get less. As far... In a matter of speaking, according to, like, Avatar lore and such, the reason people can do the bending and things is because of their chakras.
Uh-huh.
Aang can remove people's bending, meaning he can remove people's fucking chakras.
That's a fair point, yeah.
Hypothetically, he could just by grabbing onto someone, or making contact, I should say, he could manage to do what the Hyuga clan needs to do with precise movements while using their Byakugan.
Actually, I just had a terrifying thought.
Yes.
Like if both Naruto and Aang just basically get like a full memory transfer, so like they got all of each other's abilities. Like beyond things like like Naruto wouldn't get Avatar State and Aang wouldn't get Kurama, but everything else more or less. I'm just terrified by the thought of terrified of the thought of Aang with all of that with all of those other techniques that he already has the ability to do, just not the thought to do.
There's another more terrifying thing I want to bring up, but I'll wait.
The other part of it is he uses the chakras to... Aang uses... Or, as you said, they use the chakras for all bending. And Aang removes or seals them permanently.
Mm-hmm.
If Naruto had that knowledge, he could legitimately just be this bullheaded, stubborn guy he is, and just and just theoretically permanently seal anyone's chakras, and they would be like, oh yes, Zabuza, you're at our mercy, and now you have no chakra ever again, unless he can remove that. I'm not actually sure about if he can or not. Continue.
There's another thing I want you to keep in mind. It is possible for a waterbender to bloodbend.
That's true.
That's something that I do have to give Core credit for, was at least in part 1, where it turns out that the masked guy was actually a psycho waterbender whose father was a master at bloodbending. Something I can appreciate is we kind of do see the evolution of... In Core, we do get to see the evolution of, the 4 elements.
Something I appreciate based around that is just, I think it was the Earthbender in Team Korra, who just learned how to bend magma or something. He started doing the fire bending techniques, but through his earthbending, and basically learned how to do magma bending.
Yeah. Dude, I like it and dislike it. I'll explain why in a moment. Continue.
It's just, I like how, if, I'm honestly would be really interested in seeing, Aang, the avatars, it was shown that they can do that kind of thing, but it's mostly just the 4 elements with them, and I would have really liked to have long-term see an avatar learning other types of bending, like Aang properly learning sand bending, or learning metal bending from Toph, or blood bending from Katara. Yes, it's not something that should be known, but knowing about it is probably a good thing, because usually the avatars are peacekeepers and all that. Having that kind of knowledge even just to counter it, is useful.
Mm-hmm. Technically speaking, though, the Avatar stay itself is the counter, as Korra showed us. It's crazy. But anyways, the thing I want to bring up in regards to the magma bending, to a degree, I think it's cool, but how do I put it? It makes no fucking sense. Like, to elaborate, in part 1, when Aang was doing his water and earth bending, there was a moment where the two elements formed mud, right? And it was shown that Toph and Katara were both able to bend it like they're like a normal element for each other. And we've seen that Toph's earthbending also works with asteroids and such. So here's what I'm getting at. I think it's cool that they revisited the concept of the different benders utilizing the different techniques and such. A great callback to how Iroh invented that lightning redirection technique through his own admission by observing water benders, which he said it's the combination of all the elements that makes the Avatar so powerful. But here's what I'm getting at, though. How does magma work? Like, technically speaking, that still requires heat. Like, an argument could be made that the reason it works is because, pulling rocks up from nowhere, it's probably gonna have some heat involved. I acknowledge that. But it's like this. If it's liquidy like that, shouldn't that, if there's actual, lava involved, the red, the hot red liquid, well, it's not entirely liquid, but you know what I mean. Wouldn't that make more sense for it to be a combination of actual fire and earth bending? Like, that's more so what I mean. Like, I feel like it would make a little more sense if they just made it where he could do some fire bending. Or am I just supposed to go off of the assumption that he was able to do so because of the fact that one of their parents was a firebender and the other was an earthbender? I vaguely remember that.
I only have one question.
Yes?
Do we see him actually creating the magma, or does he just move it?
I don't know. What I said was only going off of what you told me about him apparently, getting a magma bending.
I've only seen, a couple clips of Korra of that, all I really remember is him, him bending magma away from the group. I'm not sure if he can actually create it.
Okay, that's reasonable.
Honestly, the mud thing, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that's acceptable. Exactly, it's like the mud thing you'd said. Oh, another thing I want to bring up in regards to Korra, something that kind of doesn't sit right with me. The dude the earthbender of the group, for no reason, he was kind of shit on repeatedly. Honest to God, he was probably the best character on Team Korra. And I don't just mean that in a biased way. What I mean is, he was, despite technically being the youngest, I say technically, I'm not sure. I know that he was the younger of the two brothers. He was the good-natured one. He's the only one who I don't remember, at least in part 1 and 2, and what I saw of part 2, book 1 and 2, he's the only guy who never really went into business for himself, per se. one example being, before I stopped watching it during Season 2, there was a moment where Korra lost her memory, and the Firebender, aka the older brother, he decided to not tell Korra that before she lost her memory, the two had a massive fight and, like, broke up as a couple and such. Yeah. But also, before that, before the two even became a couple, which wasn't until the end of Season 1, as you may recall, the
I never
Earthbender
got that far.
Fair enough. The Earthbender had a crush on Korra, and was, like, honest about it. I'm talking, like, showed up with, like, box of chocolate, flowers, that kind of cliche. And what does he see? His older brother and Korra, despite the two constantly bickering and being angry at each other, suddenly kissing. And this is also while the Firebender is supposed to be dating the other female of the group, who is a non-bender, who's also happens to be the daughter of their bending team sponsor, who, again, she was dating the Firebender at this time. So the dude, it wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the fact that the dude kind of acknowledged, yeah, he kind of does have a thing for Korra. Like, they were basically angry, but my point is, he sees this when just the previous night, when they were doing one of their bending matches, he had to anchor because the other two were off their game. He basically won a 3v1 situation, right?
Jeez.
It wasn't like he was completely alone, but you get my point. Like, maybe not 3v1, but let's just say 2-on-3, because the other two were just, like, only half there. So, he basically just showed that he's capable and things like that, right? Do you know how Season 2 starts? Let me tell you how Season 2 starts for him. Neither Korra nor the Firebender are still, like, participating in the bending sport. Instead, they're both, I guess you could say, doing police work. The Fire dude's part of the actual police, and Korra's just kind of vigilanteing. I say kind of because, you know, everyone knows that she's helping and do everything, but she's just not part of the police force. The dude, who I think his name's Bolo, I know it starts with like a B or something.
Bolo sounds right.
He continued to bend, and his team made history for the quickest elimination. They were eliminated, like, right after go.
Jesus.
Reminder, this is a dude who was good enough to hold his weight on the championship team. And he's somehow got jobbed out like that. In addition to that, he was treated like a slave / puppy / horse by one of Korra's cousins, who decided that they will be a couple now. At first he accepted it because, as far as he's concerned, he just got the goth GF. But then she started having him do shit like wear a collar with a skull on it, and have him pull one of those horse-drawn cart types of things. And basically, like, whenever they were around each other, we were just supposed to be laughing at him getting mistreated and shit. And I'm not gonna lie, to a degree it was funny. But then, when he finally broke up, she went full-on yandere psycho. In fact, I think, I may be missing pieces, but part of the reason Korra lost her memory was because her two cousins were chasing after her, under orders of their father. And while chasing, one of the cousins the girl one, basically said some shit like, "This is for coming between me and my Bolin or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
Point is, though, he was always just kind of treated like the comedic character. You know how Sokka is funny and things like that, but he has plenty of moments where it's like, yeah, he can be a little goofy, but he gets shit done.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it got better, but when I was watching it, it felt like he was only there just to be the joke. Or to be the punching bag.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I really didn't like. Honestly...
I mean, hell, Sokka had the awesome moment of like, just after that Avatar state moment we were talking about, where he just came up and knocked out the General so-and-so, and was just like, anyone have a problem with that? Good,
Yeah.
we're going.
Yeah. Not just that, but, like, Sokka had plenty of good moments. We don't even need to go that far. Just looking at when we encountered Jet and the Freedom Fighters, where Sokka noticed Jet was going too far when he was like threatening the old man, basically, and acknowledging that while the Fire Nation's horrible, you can't just kill all these people just to kill a few firebenders. So what did he do? Instead of the cliche where he just, flies on a rope and goes, "Here, I come to save the day." Instead, no. He understood, okay, if we can't stop him in time, then this village is doomed. So instead, he goes and makes sure they're all evacuated. And despite Katara and him not being on the best terms at the time, he doesn't make any quip. There's no, "See, I told you he was dangerous," or anything like that. Instead, he just tells Jet that Jet became the traitor to the very freedom he claimed to be fighting for, and left. He didn't give a quip or anything. He just told him like it was. Then there's when Then there's something that we think's funny and everything that I think we really have kind of overlooked. In regards to Sokka, we might have thought it was funny and things when we were first watching, but you remember how he had his ice tower, his snow tower for like keeping watch for the Fire Nation and things? It seemed silly and such at first, but when you actually think of it, this is a kid who can't do anything that he considered to just be a magical power. This is a guy basically trying to legitimately protect his village using nothing but leaves and sticks in his backyard. Like, we can say it was funny, his reactions and things, but when you actually think of it, it's like, oh my god, he actually was keeping watch and looking out for Fire Nation from there. By the way, there's a funny moment where when they go back to the South Pole, I think it was South Pole, we actually see he did rebuild that snow tower. But anyways, there's also the fact that Sokka, when it came to, I think it was the Wuxi warriors, the female ones, after he lost and things like that, he accepted that they were better fighters. And what did he do? He learned from them, even to the point where he wore the makeup and everything. He made some sexist comments and things like that, but he respected them and put in the work to learn. In a manner of speaking, you could say that Sokka himself was sort of like an avatar. Except not when it came to bending, but more like when it came to, like, art of war from various cultures.
Yeah, like he boomerang, war fans, swords. He learned everything he could.
not just that, but like I said, all the different warfares, like you mentioned, the boomerang of things. That's something he learned in in the winter. So, you could say that's Water Nation. He learned his swordsmanship from from someone of the Fire Nation. I believe the Wuxi warriors were put in the Earth Kingdom territory.
Yeah.
And as far as airbending goes, while he didn't learn necessarily through a teacher, think of how his creative free thinking is. It's like that of an airbender.
Yeah.
Like one of the reasons why he always managed to stay effective was because he could come up with ideas and things like that.
He's a legitimate, master strategist, too. He might not be able to take out the likes of Azula or some shit, but...
he actually has beaten Azula.
I know he has, but, he might not actually be able to put her down for good, period, end of story. But he can strategize everything so that is a non-issue. So
I just love the fact that he has successfully knocked out Zuko and Azula with his boomerang in canon. Also, to be fair, he definitely could have put Azula down for good. If she wasn't so good at what she does with provoking people and timing it with when the one comet was gonna pass by, Sokka might have slew her with that sword while she was, pseudo imprisoned.
So a comment you made a bit ago reminded me of a story I read.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I've shared this with you, but basic premise of the story is it's a crossover between Katekyo Hitman Reborn and DC Comics.
Oh god.
Specifically the Justice League Unlimited timeline. Ish. So, basic premise. The main kid from Katekyo is abducted by the mafia, is abducted by the mob, is being held in Gotham. Ivy and Harley are hunting down that specific mob because they're doing stuff to plants, and you know how Ivy is about plants. And they find this kid and save her because they do have rules. They do have rules. They don't go out of their way to kill kids or harm mothers and kids and all that. And if they do get caught up, they at least try to make it quick. It's not bad for that's not bad for legitimate villains. And long story short, they end up effectively adopting the kid and basically kind of sharing responsibility with a good chunk of their other rogues. Basically everyone but Joker and Two-Face. And because she has mystical sky bullshit, which has the basic premise of making people like her, or her because this one's a female, but making people like her and healing mental trauma. She has Killer Croc and Riddler and Harley and Ivy all completely adorable to her, and it's just one comment from it that has sparked this whole conversation. Technically, in several of the continuities, Batman and Superman and all the other superheroes are technically vigilantes. they're not licensed cops.
Yes.
So, so by that logic, none of the people they catch can actually go to prison.
Uh-huh.
And it's just
Yeah, that is a plot.
that's just I love I love that the story I read actually drew on that, because that's something I don't see talked about a lot. Like Harley and Ivy got out of jail from it, and eventually decided to move to a town for retired mafia in Japan. So it was fun.
There's actually a Batman the Animated Series episode that touched on that.
Hmm.
Like, it literally started with Poison Ivy being placed on trial, but the DA at the time, this is after Harvey became Two-Face,
Mm-hmm.
she basically said that Ivy can't go to jail or anything like that due to the fact that it was the Batman, a vigilante, who caught her.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this. The reason why you don't see it really touched upon anymore is because by this point there are so many superheroes that it's kind of just, a thing. Like, an unavoidable thing. In addition, one of the reasons why Batman worked, Batman and even Superman in earlier days, was because they wouldn't just catch the convicts, they would have them tied up or whatever, as well as the evidence required to put them away.
True, but equally, yeah, trust the superheroes, but equally it can be just like, oh yeah, they're tied up waiting for us, but but from a different perspective, it's like you tied up a random person, called the cops on them, and all they did, at most, what they did is fight you for coming at them. Like, if anything, a lot of them could be triggered as self-defense, because all of the evidence that he collects is not admissible, because he's tampered with it, because he's not a licensed officer.
Yeah, but there's still another counter argument. I'm not even kidding when I say this. Citizen's arrest. Oh, and another thing, as far as the vigilante thing with Batman's concerned, like I said, that's been a plot point before, including an antagonist who did appear in comics first, but was made into a more major problem in the MA series, known as Rupert Thorne. He was like a committee member. He was very corrupt and such, right? He emphasized the fact that Batman is a vigilante, even though this would be the point where everyone already acknowledges Batman's like a good guy and everything, including the police. Here he is telling like the police they need to try and subdue him or even kill him.
But another part of the citizen's arrest is, I believe, you need to show up to court for that.
And also, here's another one of the reasons why Batman gets away with it. It's the most pivotal one. The fact that he does work with the police, i.e. Commissioner Gordon. In fact, in the comics, because Bat wanted to really, further his reach with crime fighting, that's when he started Batman Incorporated. It was a public thing where it was basically Batman working with Bruce Wayne and the police force to assist not just the Batman, but other members of the Bat family or Batman-like vigilantes around the world.
That was very cool.
Yep. And to top things off, when Batman was and Bruce Wayne were seemingly dead after Batman Endgame, where where Joker wanted to really end things, it seemed. While he was seemingly gone, later revealed he's alive. Bruce Wayne's alive, but he has amnesia and such. While he was away, Commissioner Gordon stepped in as a Batman, but not just any Batman. He was a Batman created by GCPD. Like, think of it kind of like an Iron Man suit. Like, it was very much a public thing. Like, it was basically think of it like the police, to honor the vigilante who had saved their city so many times, had started their own Batman program.
RoboCop.
Yeah, but Gordon wasn't a cyborg. He was just wearing a suit.
I know. I hear you. I'm just saying, like, it's like the RoboCop program. It wasn't meant to be a joke. I was being like that's a serious comparison, but...
Oh, I thought it was because it was a literal cop in a robot suit.
No, it's just like the RoboCop program is very similar without the whole cyborg bit.
You know, there's a RoboCop video game, and apparently it kicks ass.
Interesting.
You do, since you're RoboCop, you do walk slowly and such.
Of course.
But I hear it actually kicks ass. Like, good and fun to play.
Interesting. One thing that did cross my mind a minute ago is another of the arguments they made is that with the earlier Robin costumes, there are certain arguments that can be made against Batman because he is bringing a child with him to hunt supervillains who have the full ability to kill him. A child in tights, no matter the area, just running around at night with a child in tights.
I agree with you, and I don't really have any defense against it, other than there's a reason why, as time went on, they retroactively changed what Robin wore.
A child in tights, fighting supervillains who could easily kill him on school nights.
Like I said, yeah. There's a reason why in animated series they made it where instead Dick, when we see Dick, it's while he's a college student and wearing pants. But in all fairness, when Robin was initially added, it was for just to like appeal to kids and things. I feel like if the Batman comics were to, let's just say hypothetically, they would start now, I feel like they would just make it where he's older. Oh, they also retroactively made it where Dick wasn't Batman's first sidekick. This is a more recent thing. Apparently it was this girl who, it really is a mess. So basically, think of it kind of like it's like this. She was originally a hacker who was working for, she was an orphan. She was, working for some villain guy during Bat's early years. When he came across her, he noticed that she had potential, like Jason and things. Effectively, he asked her if she wanted to come with him. He gave her, the proposal and everything. But the villain, who kind of found out who Batman was. One of the things I don't like about these modern comics is how much they've been fucking with his, year one and such. It's one thing when it's it's one thing when it's something like that funny birthday story I told you about. It's another thing when it's saying that Batman was worse in his younger years. than what was already said.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say it gets worse like that is because, alright, you know how in like most continuity it's established that that when Bruce started Batman Year One, it was after he went through all his training and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying I have an issue with him making mistakes, but there are times where it genuinely seems like he should have just fucking died.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this is when, like, criminals were less equipped or used to trying to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, he might have been worse, but the criminals were also significantly worse.
Mm-hmm.
But, anyways, so, because he gets found out and everything, the guy swears that he's gonna make Bruce and the girl's life miserable, right?
Mm-hmm.
The girl shoots the guy, she kills him, and basically she's like broken emotionally because Bruce had just gone from saying that he'll adopt her to suddenly being like, you are a failure. It fucks her up, and makes it where she seemingly died. In truth, she didn't die, and instead, she's basically trying to turn all the Robins against him. Like, think of it kind of like a rehashed, dumber version of Jason's story.
I was already thinking it.
Uh-huh. Which is why, of course, it involves her, like, mentally breaking Jason and the others.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, while I think Dick is mind-controlled by her,
Mm-hmm.
and Bruce is seemingly in a bad spot, like, beaten up and such, to stop/defeat her, he apologizes and admits that he messed up with her. Like, it could have been if it was done better, it probably could have been like a humility kind of thing and everything, but the problem is, in order for us to get there, we're just supposed to believe that this chick wasn't going to be found by any other member of the Bat family, and that Bruce was somehow able to have had a sidekick before Dick without them ever being mentioned and such before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't like it when they did that with a new character they added called, like, Ghostmaker, who is apparently on par with Batman in terms of fighting and such. However, in fact, during his early years, he and Batman would spar together. The problem is, they disagree with how to solve crime. In other words, basically, we have one Batman who does kill, and one who doesn't. And the one who does kill basically came to an agreement with the Batman we know. The agreement is that they stay out of each other's territory.
Isn't that basically just Azrael?
Azrael's a slightly more complicated story than that, but for the sake of this, I'll just say yeah. It's like having another Azrael, but it's made worse, because think of it like this. You have someone who's supposed to be his equal, still, like in his early years, and now that he's acquired the superpower of prep time plot armor.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the only reason he showed up in Gotham was because this was after Batman's most recent instance of seemingly dying because of his literal contingency plan called Failsafe, which is this robot that was able to decimate the entire Justice League, and that he built for the sole purpose of killing himself if he ever stepped over the line. But as it turns out, this itself was a creation of not his, but his alter ego, known as Zor-El Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like I said, this shit's complicated, but yeah, he built a robot that was able to destroy the entire fucking Justice League through non-lethal means.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you remember how Batman's contingencies are always like non-lethal or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
He literally built something that was able to kick Superman's ass. And everyone else's. Like failsafe effectively, you could say, means all the contingencies, including the ones Vandal Savage / Ra's al Ghul utilized to defeat the Justice League, was apparently Bruce pulling his punches against them. Because here's the other thing about the Zernai Batman. He has no moral code. Like, he'll kill without hesitation, and more disturbingly, he has no problem beating up the Robins. Like, I mean, he straight up tells them he could put a bullet between their eyes and not think twice. Or forget about it after doing it.
So I just want to say, I
Yes.
did actually watch someone do a video on the failsafe,
Oh.
and
So you know how busted that fucker is.
yeah, but I also remember Batman dressing in the Zor-El costume and basically bringing out a split personality of Zor-El.
Uh-huh. So, back to what I was saying. So, Ghostmaker, how the fuck did the Justice League never know or do anything about him? Even as good as Bats is, the Justice League's still able to get him every once in a while. But we have a guy who, again, is basically Batman's equal, with the only difference being one of them kills, the other doesn't. And the Justice League never thought, oh, we could use his help in any of these things. It's like, no, we would rather work with the Joker and Lex Luthor than this guy, apparently. Or no matter how desperate he got, Bats never even brought him up.
Yep.
But back to what I was saying, even though I do think he looks cool, and I think it could be interesting because of the fact that basically when they fight, Batman more or less convinces him to help him, since currently his relationship with the Robins isn't the best, and everyone else. Deadass. He basically said, "I bet you're not tough enough to help me solve the crime problem without killing." That's effectively what Bats did. Like, again, I don't necessarily dislike him as a character or anything. It's more like I don't like what it did with the mythos. Like, for God's sakes, you tell me that Joker at the bare minimum wouldn't know about this guy and think to himself, I don't like sharing him, and I don't like having someone ripping off my adversary. Like, best way I can describe it, if he's supposed to be Batman's equal and everything, then with how they inserted him, he cannot fucking exist. Not unless he at least came from, I don't know, a different Earth. I'm not saying he's the Bruce Wayne of a different Earth, but, you know, like how there's Justice League Dark, where there's a Batman who isn't Bruce Wayne, and is literally just like the scientist who would become Man-Bat, instead turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
Like, shit like that. Or have it be where this is a new guy, but make it where, I don't know, or how about give him this story, but instead make it where he's coming from a different Earth, like where he acknowledges this isn't his Batman. Or do something. Like, one of the reasons it's hard to really establish characters in comics anymore is because you more or less only have two options. Either A, you introduce them, and they have to establish themselves as a threat by beating someone. In this case, if you want a Batman villain, it basically means that you have to have them either beat up another powerful villain to showcase how much of a threat they are, or they have to be able to beat Batman in some regard. Whether it's outsmart him, whether it's, I don't know, they can set a trap for him, or just defeat him in combat. But because of all the shit Batman's dealt with at this point, it feels impossible. Like, another instance of this whole trying to establish a new character thing is this, I hate this bitch. Her name's Punchline. I swear she's initially just an edgy version of Harley. But they do this dumb, vague shit where when she establishes her own Royal Flush Gang, and they're asking her, like, what to do next, or why don't they do something, she just says some cryptic, vague things like, it's part of the game. But mostly, it's the fact that this college student, who doesn't even have an athletics background, was able to beat Batman in a fight. This is a normal girl. A normal college girl. Like, at least if and when Harley does it, it's like she has an athletics background. So she could be doing flips and shit like that.
Yeah.
But not only has she beaten Batman at least once or twice, she's also, I believe, beaten Catwoman, as well as, I can't remember her name. It's this female chick who's I think she's a newer member of the Bat family. But the point is, she's beating people who, it makes no fucking sense.
Cassandra Cain?
Oh no, fuck that, no. She did not beat Cassandra, I know that much. Cassandra is literally number 2 in the pecking order. I say number 2 because, by all accounts, Batman has admitted that Nightwing/Dick is not just his equal, but could even be deemed his better. Like, everyone in the Bat family agrees she's the scariest one, and she's the closest to being a mini Bruce. Closer than fucking Damian. Whenever Bruce is seemingly dead or has to step away from the mantle, it's agreed upon that if it's not Dick, it's her. In fact, I've watched a video going over who is the best choice to be the successor to Bruce. If you're curious, the guy who agrees, yeah, Dick is the one. The only problem is, because of Dick's personality, he likely wouldn't be doing it forever. So even though he is the best for the job, he also is the one least likely to be Batman long term.
Could it be Stephanie Brown / Spoiler?
Actually, I think it was.
She first appeared in '92 and actually had a initial thing with the Birds of Prey before joining the Bat family.
Okay, it wasn't her then. I thought it was, but when you said she was introduced in '92, no. I know that it's some recent chick.
Do you know what color her hair is?
I want to say black.
Could it be like a dark blue? Or purple?
It could be possible. I know that she's... I know she's from like less than 2012.
Well, there's Harper Road, known as Bluebird, who honestly looks like someone tried to gender bend to Nightwing.
That's her. How recent is she?
2012.
There we go.
Like
It's kind of funny that all it took was you to say gender bent Nightwing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, she's definitely a interesting one. Hmm. Apparently she appears in Young Justice.
Neat.
Episode Another Freak. What was I thinking of? So we were talking about the Bat family and...
I was talking about how hard it is to, like, introduce comic characters.
Oh yeah, I
and shit.
remember now. It would have to be a one-off, but something that they could do is do like Bleach did.
Oh.
Where with the character from the Fullbring arc who, if they stab you with their sword, they can insert themselves anywhere into your past,
Oh,
so
that
that they
guy.
instantly,
Yeah.
so you instantly believe that they're like a longtime friend.
Wasn't it also something like altering your past?
Yes. Like, you couldn't alter it to the point where it's like you couldn't alter it to the point that you're completely different to how you are right now, but like, just for instance, he like like I think the most beneficial one is in the current ongoing arc, the Thousand Year Blood War, like where you can where he spoilers if you're wanting to not hear this not hear spoilers about the current Bleach arc. Spoilers.
He really did it. I know that they used established things and everything, but that victory really felt like an ass pull. In my opinion.
I hear you. But yeah, just he inserted himself into Ichigo's past to push the blade out of the way so that his Bankai didn't get broken. Because if your Bankai is broken, you basically have to reforge your Bankai. Like it's basically something that just doesn't heal. But so what ends up happening is that Ichigo had to rush over to take care of Yawak, Shobak, whatever.
The guy who's like named all the Quincy King guy, right?
Yeah, the Quincy King guy. To go kill him before he caught up to the because he's had perception at this point. Like, so Ichigo had to rush in to take care of it. To take care of him before his perception could catch up to the fact that the past was altered so that Ichigo's sword is so that Ichigo actually is able to fight him still.
Like I said, it kind of felt like an ass pull.
It was a little bit of an ass pull.
Like it's more like they didn't want Ichigo to have. Somehow I almost called him Kurosaki. Anyways,
That is his
It,
name.
yes and no, you know what I mean.
I'm not entirely certain I do, but continue.
His name is Ichigo. His last name's Kurosaki. Like,
Hmm.
I almost called him Kurosaki Ichigo. That's what I'm saying.
That's funny. But anyway, continue.
The reason I say it's kind of an asshole is it feels more like, because this is the final big bad and this is basically supposed to be a guy who has who has absorbed the power of the most powerful being, the guy who basically holds the universe together in their canon. It feels like they just didn't want Ichigo to surpass that power. So instead of Ichigo doing his usual thing where he has a tough fight where he eventually does win, whether it's through help or not, instead it
Correction.
felt... Go
Correction.
on.
He, Yuavaka did not, to my knowledge, he did not absorb the power of the Soul King. He
I know,
just
but
killed the Soul King.
yeah, but wasn't he basically just gonna, like, take the place and everything?
Not really. He was basically forced. He was basically
Oh,
saying,
you know what? No, I'm thinking of the guy who named every Zanpakuto. His plan was to literally have Ichigo replace the guy.
yeah, but but so like he had future perception or some shit. But to be fair, Ichigo did have one hell of a fight with him up to that point. Several, in fact. And like, so he had a tough fight getting to Urabak.
My my point is this though.
Hmm.
In regards to the fight and such, it felt like they just didn't want Ichigo to legitimately triumph over the thing. It felt like they were trying to do an Avengers type deal where it's like big moment where everyone we know unites. It honestly felt like they were just trying to justify that when,
Mm.
in a manner of speaking, most of those fuckers shouldn't have even been able to stand up with all the spiritual pressure going on between Yalbuk and Ichigo. It
So
it felt like it was really they just wanted to give us a fake out moment where it seems like all hope is lost.
it's definitely that one. It's definitely a fake out moment, but
Like it felt like a cheap one rather than an earned one. Go on.
I just wanted to say that to be fair, you're at the that point of the anime. Uh, Ichigo was, and Urabak, I think, were fighting in Soul Society or Hueco Mundo, one of the two.
Hmm.
And Urabak, after defeating Ichigo and breaking his Bankai, laughed at him and went to Karakura Town to end things, as it were.
I thought he intended to keep Ichigo alive.
Well, yeah, not, not to end Ichigo, but to end, to finish things up, to, like, to my understanding, killing the Soul King basically started forcing the realms to merge, so that Soul Society and Hueco Mundo and the Living Realm were all becoming one place.
Ah,
So he went to the Karakura town and just figured that if Ichigo was meant to survive, then he would make his own way there, basically.
hmm.
Um, it's interesting talking to you, Matt, but it is very late.
Yeah, I agree. However, there's something I have to say.
Uh huh.
It kind of bugged me that main, like, every single, like, main story arc, Ichigo would be revealed to be part this and part that.
Yeah,
Like,
I
he
I
went from being
agree.
a human to being a human that was turned into a Soul Reaper, which is fine because, you know, that anyone could technically become a Soul Reaper after they pass on, and then a human when they reincarnate. Then he was part Soul Reaper, part Hollow. Oh, but it turns out he's not just part Hollow, he's also part, because he's half Hollow, it means that he's now this different thing. You get what I mean. Like, every time a new, like, group or concept was introduced, Ichigo was, like, always a part of it, through some loose connection.
I'm just glad they didn't do it with the filler arc. There's the filler arc where they introduced the Bounce, which is basically just, like, a bunch of people who've been alive for a really long time, and I'm just glad they didn't make him part of that, too.
I feel like the only reason they didn't was because that they didn't really have... I feel like the only reason they didn't was because they wouldn't be able to alter his appearance. Like, think of it like this. Remember how he inherited the power of hell, and they changed it, but that was effectively a one-off?
Yeah.
And then there's the point where we stopped seeing the Hollow, him take on that Hollow form for a bit, or at least where he didn't. Yeah.
So they gave a good reason for that, at least. So in the Waco Mundo arc, he could no longer take on the Hollow form because his Hollow ascended to Vassal Lorde, became a Vassal Lorde, like the strongest version of a Hollow.
I know.
And since it was too powerful, he couldn't maintain the mask easily. And then he had the whole Bankai training, and then the Fullbring arc, and then he didn't use it, and then it kind of then he got into real Bankai. Yes?
During the Muramasa story arc, when Old Man Zangetsu, who in hindsight shouldn't have even been involved now, was temporarily removed from Ichigo, that as a result meant that the Hollow half, or the real, or you know, his real power, was taking over. And we kind of got to see what Vassal Lorde's Ichigo looked like in that.
No, we didn't.
That wasn't Vassal Lorde's?
No.
Holy fuck!
That was Ajugas. So there's 3 tiers.
It wasn't even Menos Grande?
Ajugas is after Menos Grande.
Oh.
There's 4 tiers. Normal Hollow, Menos Grande, Ajugas, Vassal Lorde.
Remember when Menos Grande used to be, like, the most terrifying?
Yep.
Honestly, in hindsight, Bleach fucked up their power scaling worse than Dragon Ball Z.
Yep. But yeah, Ajugas is the 3rd tier, and the Vassal Lorde Hollow form is the one that killed Okiura, whatever. The one who literally... Cypher, yeah, the one who literally ripped him limb from bloody limb before just like evaporating him. Or also known as the time Ichigo legitimately died.
Didn't Yukio immediately, like, respawn?
No, I don't believe so. I think... I don't really quite remember quite well, but I think that Ichigo legitimately full-on killed him, like he was 100% dead.
Fair enough. Either way, the important thing is, regardless, after that, that's when Grimmjow showed up with Orihime, because he wanted his rematch, correct?
I believe so. Or, well,
Grimmjow was so fucking cool.
Yes. Orihime was... I think Orihime was already there, but more or less.
She was... Yeah, no, she was already there. After all, she was the whole reason Ichigo was there in the first place. What I mean is, though, like, she was basically in the tower or whatever the fuck while Ichigo was fighting outside. Grimmjow effectively grabbed her, hopped out of the hole they made, and told her, heal him so I can fight him and kill him.
I think we're thinking of different bits.
Possibly. But, as one thing that was already agreed upon, Grimmjow is fucking awesome.
He is. This makes me want to play the Bleach Soul Resurrection game again.
That's
More.
the Muso, right?
Yeah, that's the Muso that has Grimmjow and Yoruichi and goes up to the
As
end of
long
the
as it
Aizen.
ain't, as long as it isn't the fucking Shattered Blade. That's the Wii game, which was like one of, if not the first, to show Bleach games to show up in the States.
No, but honestly, the really, really cool thing about Soul Resurrection that I haven't even unlocked, if you get Ichigo up to level 60 in Soul Resurrection, you unlock the Vasto Lorde form as a playable character.
Damn.
Right? And it's cool. If I had the build for it, I would 100% cosplay as Hollow Ichi or the Hollow Ichigo, the Vasto Lorde. Because it would be cool. Okay, I need to stop streaming and go to bed. Or go to sleep. I'm already in bed, but yeah. Good night, Twitch and YouTube. If you've enjoyed listening to us chat for the last hour, hour and a half, please do like, follow, subscribe, yada yada. Have a good one.
Yada yada.
Yada yada.